She walked in at 11:42 p.m. I remember the exact time because I was standing by the hallway light switch, thumb hovering over the dimmer, just about to shut everything down for the night. I'd already brushed my teeth, fed the cat, checked the locks. Everything but turn off that last light. Something told me not to, like part of me was waiting, whether I admitted it or not. Then I heard it. The jingle of keys. The slow, deliberate sound of her heels on the porch. Haley walked in like nothing was wrong. Her hair was curled. Soft waves she hadn't left the house with. Lipstick. Darker than usual. A deep maroon shade I didn't recognize. And wrapped around her neck, like some afterthought of fashion, was a black scarf with a red stripe. I'd never seen that scarf in our house before. Not once. But what really got me wasn't the scarf. It was the smell. The scarf, her jacket, even her hair. They reeked of cologne. Not perfume. Cologne. Kind I didn't wear. Something stronger. Musky. Mature. Not what you'd expect from someone just spending time with girlfriends over cocktails and Spotify playlists. She stopped in the doorway when she saw me. Not startled, exactly. Just surprised that I wasn't already asleep. "Oh," she said, blinking. "You're still up." "I was about to head to bed," I replied, glancing at the scarf. "Long night." She shrugged off her jacket and hung it, along with the scarf, on the rack by the door. "Yeah, a little. We ended up going to that new rooftop bar by the river. Got windy. One of the girls gave me a scarf. You know how they are." Her tone was breezy. Too breezy. My eyes narrowed, but I didn't press. I didn't ask which girl gave it to her. I didn't point out that it was a man's scarf, thick, tailored, the kind with initials stitched inside. I didn't mention that her makeup looked freshly applied, like someone trying to fix their face for the second half of an evening, not the end of one. I just nodded once, not trusting myself to say anything more. She walked over like she always did, leaned in to kiss my cheek, and I caught another wave of that cologne. Up close, it was worse, like someone had leaned over her or hugged her tight. It clung to her like she'd been wearing someone else's scent all night. I must have flinched, even if I didn't mean to, because she pulled back. Her smile cracked just slightly. "What?" she asked, still smiling, but now her eyes were scanning mine, looking for something. Doubt, anger, jealousy, maybe. Couldn't tell. I motioned to the scarf. "That doesn't look like something a woman would wear." She gave a little laugh. Forced. "Oh, come on. Don't be like that. It was just a joke. They wanted to see if you'd notice. Like some dumb test. We'd had a few drinks and they were like, 'Haley, wear this home and see if he says anything.' So I did." She smiled again, tilting her head. "Congrats. You passed." But I wasn't playing. Not tonight. I looked at her a long time. Not accusingly. Not suspicious. Just seeing her. The way she stood too straight like she was performing calm. The way she fiddled with the ring on her right hand. Not the wedding ring, the other one, the one she wore only when she was out. Her eyes flicked to mine, then away again. "It smells like cologne," I said finally. She shrugged again. "Probably from whoever owned it. I don't know. It's not like I checked." "You're being weird." Maybe I was. Maybe I'd finally crossed that invisible line between healthy curiosity and something darker. Paranoia. Mistrust. But the thing is, it didn't feel like I was being weird. It felt like I was waking up. There was a pause. Just a beat too long. "You don't believe me?" she asked, and this time the tone was different. There was something under it. Challenge? Hurt? Or just a hint of desperation? I didn't answer. Not directly. I turned and walked to the kitchen, grabbed a glass of water, and leaned against the counter while she stood in the doorway. Her whole vibe shifted. Gone was the playful Haley from 30 seconds ago. Her shoulders tensed. She chewed on her bottom lip. She was watching me, waiting for me to say something. Anything she could respond to. But I didn't. And in that silence, something shifted again. I saw it in her face. Her eyes dropped, just for a second, and in that second, I saw the first real crack in her expression. I didn't yell. I didn't accuse. I didn't play detective. I just shut down. And I think that's what got to her more than anything else. Because Haley didn't come home looking for forgiveness. She came home expecting a reaction. A jealous remark. A tense question. A fight, maybe. Something fiery. Something she could flip and twist into some "you're too controlling" narrative. A reason to be offended, to cry, to say she felt trapped or attacked. That's what people do when they're guilty and trying to transfer weight. But I didn't give her that. I gave her nothing. And for someone like her, silence is worse than anger. She stood there for a moment, arms crossed, like she was trying to decide whether to keep pressing or let it go. Eventually, she let out a soft breath and said, "I'm going to shower." I didn't reply. She disappeared down the hall. I heard the bathroom door close, the water run, and the rustling of her clothes as they hit the tile floor. I walked back over to the coat rack and looked at the scarf again. Still smelled like him. Whoever he was. I didn't touch it. I just stared at it. And for the first time since we got married, I realized I didn't trust my wife. Not even a little. The next morning, I woke up before her. The sun wasn't even up yet, just a faint blue bleeding through the blinds. I didn't feel rested. I didn't even feel tired. Just hollow, like something had been scooped out of me overnight. I sat on the edge of the bed for a minute, staring at the hardwood floor, listening to the soft rhythm of her breathing. She looked peaceful, untouched, like someone who hadn't come home wrapped in another man's scarf. I got up, threw on a hoodie, and went out to get coffee. Not because I needed caffeine, just because I needed air. Space. A minute to think without that perfume of cologne hanging in the room like a ghost. I walked to the cafe 3 blocks from our place. They knew my order. Small black, no sugar. I thanked the barista, sat down by the window, and stared into the cup like it could explain everything. That's when it hit me. Not a sudden realization, but a slow, sickening roll of memories. Each one peeling back the layers of the past few months. I didn't want to think about them. I didn't want to remember all the times something felt off, because that meant admitting I'd ignored it, that I'd helped build the illusion. But the cracks had been there, so obvious now that I couldn't unsee them. Started small, little habits slipping away. She used to kiss me on the forehead in the mornings, always half asleep, her hair a mess. I used to tease her about her morning breath, and she'd call me rude and laugh. Then one day she stopped doing it. No kiss, no joke, no eye contact, just I'm late and the door closing behind her. Her phone used to live on the coffee table, kitchen counter, nightstand, open, unlocked. Now it was always on her, always face down, always with the ringer off. If I asked why, she'd say she was trying to be more present, like that was a bad thing. Weekends, too, used to be ours. Brunch, laundry, random drives with no destination. Then suddenly she was catching up on work at weird hours. Sunday mornings at the office. Saturday afternoons at some coworker's baby shower. I never got the invite to. She'd come back with a story and a coffee and a smile like nothing ever happened. Then there were the things she bought. Shoes she swore were on clearance. Dresses with the tags still on. Borrowed from friends. A designer purse she said she won in a raffle at work. I didn't push too hard. I wanted to believe her. I told myself she deserved nice things. Once I found a half-eaten takeout container in her car. 2 forks. Thai food. She told me she'd gotten lunch with a client, but later said she'd eaten alone. I let it slide. I figured I'd just misunderstood. Now I'm not so sure. Another time, she came home smelling exactly like the cologne from last night. Same brand. Same scent. I remember hugging her in the kitchen, pausing and asking, "New perfume?" She laughed and said some guy must have stood too close in the elevator. "You know how it is," she'd said, shrugging it off like it was nothing. And me? I believed her. I wanted to believe her, because the alternative was uglier than I could handle. Because if I let myself believe something was wrong, I'd have to do something about it. And I wasn't ready for that. But the biggest red flag, the one that still twists my stomach, was the deleted messages. She'd been texting, standing at the counter. I asked her what was so funny. She said work stuff, and locked her phone. When she left the room, I picked it up. Not to snoop. Just something felt off. The screen was still warm. I checked her messages. Empty. Nothing in or out. Not a single thread. When I asked her about it later, she rolled her eyes and said she was clearing out old stuff to save space. That it was slowing down her apps. And I believed that too. Because I didn't want to be the guy who checked his wife's phone. I didn't want to be that husband. The one who second guesses. The one who doubts. The one who snoops instead of trusts. But trust isn't blind. Trust has edges. And mine had been fraying for months. I just hadn't admitted it out loud. The signs were all there. Her distance. The weird explanations. The manufactured int asterisk Macy that always felt off. Not cold, exactly. Just performed. Like she was running through the motions, checking boxes. Even the way she looked at me had changed. There was a time she looked at me like I was her person. Like she was proud. Like I mattered. Lately, it felt like she was looking through me. Smiling, nodding, but with that glazed-over politeness reserved for strangers or cashiers or people you don't plan to see again. I sat there in that cafe, holding my coffee, trying to swallow the lump in my throat. It wasn't anger I felt. Not yet. It was more like grief. Like I was mourning something I didn't know had already died. And maybe it had. Maybe it ended long before the scarf. Maybe that was just the physical proof, the receipt left on the table after the crime. I looked at my reflection in the window. I looked tired, pale, older than I remembered. I'd spent so long trying to convince myself this was just a rough patch. That people go through phases. That distance doesn't always mean disloyalty. But now it felt like I was standing in the burned remains of a house that had been on fire for months, pretending it was just cold. I got up, dumped the coffee, and walked home slower than usual. When I came through the door, she was sitting at the table, scrolling on her phone. No makeup, messy bun, sweatshirt. She looked up and smiled, like everything was fine. "Hey," she said. "You went out." "Yeah," I said. "Coffee." She nodded. "You okay?" I didn't answer, not because I was trying to be cold, but because I wasn't sure what the truth was yet. Only that I was closer to it now than I'd ever been before. And the thing about the truth? Once you see it, you can't go back. It happened a week later. A random Tuesday morning, around 9:15, when my phone buzzed with a message from an unknown number. No text, just 3 attachments. First, I thought it was spam. I almost deleted it without opening. But something, call it instinct, or maybe just the quiet dread that had been sitting in my gut since that night with the scarf, made me tap. 3 photos. The first one hit like a gut punch. Haley, my wife, standing outside a hotel in Denver, smiling at someone behind the camera. Her hair was in that same loose wave she always wore for work trips. She was dressed sharp, confident. Next to her stood a man, tall, well-dressed, maybe mid-30s. His hand rested on her waist like it belonged there. The second photo was taken in broad daylight, near a cafe I recognized from her stories. The one she'd said had the best cold brew in Colorado. Only she wasn't alone. Same guy. Same easy familiarity. He was looking at her the way I used to, before everything turned into small talk and half-truths. The third one was the hardest to look at. They were kissing. In public. No shame, no fear of being seen. Just her and him like the world around them didn't exist. My hands went cold. The photos blurred for a second. I thought maybe I was imagining it. Maybe it was a deepfake, a prank. But I knew that hotel. I paid for it. It was the one her company always booked for out-of-town conferences. The one she'd stayed in 3 times this year. My phone buzzed again. This time there was a message. Short. From someone named Emily. "You deserve to know. This is my husband. I don't want anything. I just can't keep this secret anymore." That was it. No threats. No demands. Just truth dropped into my life like a grenade. I didn't reply. Couldn't. I just sat there in silence. The photos still open. My coffee cooling beside me. My mind was blank. Like someone had pulled the plug on all thought. It wasn't suspicion anymore. It wasn't guessing. It was proof. Haley wasn't just distant or tired or stressed. She wasn't just testing me with a scarf or deleting texts to save space. She was gone. And she'd been gone for a while. I don't remember getting up, but suddenly I was standing in the bedroom, pulling out her suitcase from the closet. The same navy blue one she'd taken to Denver. I started packing her things. Not angrily, not impulsively, just mechanically. Fold, stack, zip, dress shirts, jeans, hairbrush, perfume, the scarf. I placed it all by the front door. Clean, neat, final. The house was silent except for the hum of the refrigerator. Outside, a lawnmower buzzed in the distance. Birds chirped like it was just another day. And maybe it was, for everyone else. When Haley came home that evening, she walked in with the same casual grace as always, purse over her shoulder, phone in hand. Then she saw the suitcase. She froze. Her eyes flicked to me, standing in the living room, and in that instant, I saw it. The understanding, the recognition. She didn't ask why. She didn't need to. She knew. Her face went pale. Then she tried to recover, half a smile, half a performance. "James," she said softly, setting down her purse. "What's this?" I didn't answer. I didn't have to. The photos were open on the kitchen counter, face up on my laptop screen. She saw them the moment she turned. Her body stiffened. She took a small step forward, then stopped, like she was trying to decide which version of the truth to tell. "It's not," she began, but her voice cracked. She swallowed hard. "James, listen. It's not what you think." I almost laughed at how predictable it sounded. I didn't, though. I just stared at her. "You went to Denver," I said quietly. "Right?" She hesitated. "For work." "With who?" "My team," she said quickly. Too quickly. "Just you and him?" Her jaw clenched. She didn't answer. I took a slow breath. "Emily sent me the photos. His wife." Haley's face dropped. That was the moment her world cracked open. The one name she hadn't expected me to say. She covered her mouth, her eyes filling fast. "Oh my God," she whispered. "She wasn't supposed to." Then she stopped. The rest of the sentence died on her tongue. I think that was the moment she realized it didn't matter who was supposed to do what. The damage was already done. I didn't yell. I didn't ask for explanations. I didn't need to hear about how she was lonely or confused, or how it just happened. I just said, "You should go." Her eyes widened. "James, please, don't do this like it's nothing. It wasn't what it looks like. I swear I didn't mean for it to go that far." "Then what was it?" I asked quietly. "A mistake? A dare? Another test?" Her lips trembled. "I made a mistake." "You made a decision," I corrected. "Several, actually." Tears fell down her cheeks. She stepped forward, reaching out for me, but I stepped back. The gap between us felt endless. "James," she whispered, "please, we can fix this." I shook my head. "No, you broke it on purpose." Her sobs filled the room, but I couldn't feel anything. Not anger, not pity, not hate, just clarity. The kind that comes when there's nothing left to save. She tried to talk again, tried to find some thread of logic that would make sense of it all. But there was no version of this story that ended with forgiveness. Not anymore. Finally, she whispered, "I didn't want to lose you." I looked at her, really looked at her, and realized she already had. Not today. Not because of Emily. But long before that. The day she started choosing excitement over honesty, secrets over safety. The day she stopped being my wife and started being someone else. I turned away, walked to the front door, and opened it. Her suitcase was waiting. She stood there for a moment, staring at it like it was a stranger's. Then she knelt, her hands trembling as she zipped it shut. I didn't help her. She walked out slowly, stopping once on the porch to look back. Her eyes met mine, desperate, searching for some trace of the man who used to love her enough to forgive anything. But that man wasn't here anymore. When the door closed, the sound was soft. Not angry, not loud, just final. I stood there for a long time, listening to the echo fade. Then I went to the kitchen, deleted the photos and powered off my phone. I didn't want to see her name again, didn't want to see his. For the first time in months, maybe years, I felt something close to peace. Not happiness, just a strange, steady calm. The kind that comes after a storm, when there's nothing left standing but you. And as I sat in that quiet house, surrounded by the ghost of everything we'd built, I understood something simple and terrible. You never really catch a liar. You just stop lying to yourself. She called me the next morning. I didn't answer. Then came the texts. Can we talk? Please, James. Just one conversation. You don't understand what was really going on. And then, hours later, I messed up, but you don't have to throw everything away over one mistake. One mistake. That phrase stuck to me like a thorn, as if there was only one broken moment. As if every lie, every calculated dodge, every night she came home with someone else's scent on her skin could be filed under the category of, oops. I turned off my phone again. I wasn't trying to punish her. I just didn't see the point in playing the game anymore, the back and forth, the guilt shifting, the desperate attempts to rewrite the ending. She had made her choices. My silence wasn't about revenge. It was just clarity. I was done. That day, I started pulling my life out of the wreckage. There wasn't some big emotional breakdown. No slamming doors, no dramatic soundtrack. Just me opening drawers, logging into accounts, reclaiming my name on paper. I took my passport, my banking documents, my medical files, the external hard drive where I kept backups of all our photos. Not the wedding ones, the ones from when we were still figuring life out in that first apartment with peeling paint and no insulation. The ones that didn't hurt to look at. Yet, I went room by room, slowly detaching myself from everything we'd tangled together over the years. Utility bills, tax returns, streaming subscriptions. It was like unbraiding a knot you didn't realize you'd been living inside. And then I packed a duffel bag. Just the essentials. Clothes, laptop, my backup phone, some books I hadn't read in years. A flask my brother gave me when I turned 30. Not much, really. I didn't need much. I wasn't running. I was leaving. I went back to the old studio we used to rent, back before her promotion, before the upgraded kitchen and the mid-century furniture and the curated couple's Instagram. The studio was still in my name. I never took it off the lease when we moved. She'd called it hoarding nostalgia. I guess she was right. Smelled like dust and paint. The kind of smell that says no one's lived here in a while. But it felt like breathing fresh air after months underwater. I laid down on the mattress on the floor and closed my eyes. For the first time in forever, the silence didn't feel heavy. Felt honest. Over the next few days, she kept reaching out. A voicemail at midnight. Then again at 6 a.m. Like she thought timing might change my heart. The messages were always some combination of remorse and denial. How she couldn't explain it over text. How it wasn't real. How she still loved me. One day she showed up at my office. I didn't come out. My coworker knocked on my door with a confused look. There's someone here asking for you. Brought donuts. I peeked through the blinds. Her, standing there with a pink pastry box in hand, her hair pulled back, wearing the sweatshirt I gave her for Christmas 2 years ago, the one with the tiny bleach stain she never let me replace. I sat back down, waited until she left. Later, she texted a photo from our anniversary dinner 2 years ago. Us at that Italian place with the string lights and the waiter who sang Sinatra off-key. You're really ending this over one stupid mistake? There it was again. One. As if betrayal was a singular act, not a pattern of choices she kept making while expecting me to carry the weight of pretending everything was fine. But I wasn't carrying it anymore. I didn't block her. I didn't respond either. I let her messages sit in the same digital graveyard where all our old texts used to live. The ones where we used to talk about recipes, inside jokes, or which movie to stream on Friday nights. Now, that thread was just apology after apology, like she was hoping to hit a magic number that would make me forget. But forgetting wasn't the problem. I remembered everything, and that's why I was gone. One afternoon, I ran into the guy who used to live 2 doors down from us in our old building. Jeremy, kind of a loud guy, Loved fantasy football and grilling in the dead of winter. He looked surprised to see me. Dude, he said, handing me a six-pack. You okay? I heard about. I nodded. Yeah, I'm okay. He hesitated, then said, I don't know if I should say this, but I heard something. I didn't ask him to continue. I just waited. He scratched the back of his head. You remember that corporate party she went to? The one a few weeks ago? I nodded once. Well, I got this from someone who used to work with her. They said it wasn't just a party. It was like a game. Some of the women were joking about pretending they were breaking up with their boyfriends, like as a test, to see how they'd react. My stomach dropped. Jeremy continued. Apparently, they dared her to fake leave you, like see if you'd chase after her. I think the word they used was trial breakup. And the guy, Miles? He was in on it at first. But then it turned into something else. I didn't say anything, just stared at the ground, feeling like someone had rewound the last 2 months and handed me a script with a punchline I never signed up for. They didn't think you'd actually walk, Jeremy added. Of course they didn't. That's the thing about people who treat love like a playground. They think the games are harmless until someone stops playing. I thanked him, walked home, didn't cry, didn't scream, just sat in the studio that night, staring at the ceiling fan and wondering how many moments in my life had been orchestrated for someone else's entertainment. But I wasn't a prop. I wasn't an audience member. And I sure as hell wasn't coming back for the second act. A week later, she sent me one last message. I get it now. I don't know who I am without you. I hope someday you'll want to know who I am again. I read it once. Then I turned off my phone and tossed it on the dresser. I wasn't angry anymore. I wasn't heartbroken. I was just free. And freedom doesn't always feel like fireworks or applause. Sometimes it's just the sound of your own breath in a quiet room, finally uninterrupted. I wasn't looking for answers anymore, but they still found their way to me. It was almost funny how the truth, the real truth, doesn't always come in dramatic moments or emotional breakdowns. Sometimes it just walks through the door wearing a loose tie and a half-apologetic expression. That's how I got the full story. A few weeks after I left, I was packing up some final things at the old house. Mail, a few jackets, a toolbox she never touched but always said she might need someday. She wasn't home. I'd texted her the time I'd be coming by, mostly out of courtesy. As I was loading the back of my car, a car pulled up in front of the driveway. It was Nathan, one of her co-workers, not one I knew well. We'd met briefly at a holiday event years ago. Polite guy, too observant for his own good. He stepped out slowly, holding a paper bag in one hand and a cup of coffee in the other. Hey, he said cautiously. Didn't expect to see you here. Just grabbing the last of my stuff. He nodded. Can I talk to you for a second? I wasn't sure if I should say anything, but I think you deserve to know. I raised an eyebrow but didn't say no. That was enough for him to continue. I left the company last month, he said. New job, better environment. I couldn't take it anymore. I wasn't sure where he was going with it. I kept my eyes on the bag I was zipping up. He took a sip of his coffee and added, I wasn't close with Haley, but I saw things, and I heard enough. Now I looked at him. He exhaled. You know that party? The one that started all this? I nodded. Well, he said, pausing. It wasn't a regular party. There was this thing, a game. One of her friends joked about how men don't pay attention until you scare them. So they dared Haley to mess with you. Said she should come home late, wearing another guy's scarf or hoodie or something. See if you noticed. Like it was some kind of loyalty test. My stomach twisted. They called it a test-run breakup. He went on. Said it'd be fun. That you'd get jealous, maybe freak out, and then she'd feel wanted again. I didn't respond. He hesitated, then added, The guy? Miles? Yeah, he was in on it at first. He and Haley had been flirting for a while. Nothing serious, at least not until after the party. I clenched my jaw. What do you mean? Nathan looked uncomfortable. After you didn't react the way they expected, after you just shut down, things shifted. Haley was quiet at work for days. Then suddenly she and Miles started showing up to meetings together. Sitting close. Leaving lunch together. It wasn't subtle. Of course it wasn't. I had walked away, and in the space where conflict was supposed to happen, jealousy, rage, begging, there was just silence. And in that silence, she found someone willing to fill the void. Nathan cleared his throat. I think at first she didn't expect you to actually leave. They all thought you'd blow up and then forgive her. It was a joke. To them, anyway. He handed me the bag. I'm not trying to stir things up. I just figured, if it were me, I'd want to know. Inside the bag was my old hoodie. The one Haley used to wear around the house. The one I hadn't seen in weeks. I don't know how Nathan ended up with it. Maybe she left it in her office, maybe he grabbed it out of instinct. Didn't matter. I nodded once. Thanks. He gave a small, awkward smile. You deserve better than whatever that was. Then he left. That night, I sat on the floor of the studio with the hoodie balled up beside me. I didn't cry. I didn't even feel rage anymore. I just felt done. Like a chapter had slammed itself shut so hard the pages folded inward. She had tested me, and she failed. Because what none of them understood, what none of those party-fueled, wine-drunk coworkers grasped, was that love isn't measured by whether or not someone panics when you pretend to leave. It's measured by whether they trust you not to *p***nize the relationship in the first place. She hadn't wanted love. She'd wanted drama. She wanted proof that I would chase, that I would fight, that I would fall to pieces. But I didn't. I walked away, and that ruined the script. I didn't hear from her for a while after that. Not directly, but people talk. One of her old college friends, Melissa, ran into me at a bookstore. I almost didn't recognize her. New haircut, baby stroller, tired eyes. She asked how I was doing. I told her the truth. Better. She hesitated, then said, You know, I tried to talk her out of it. I blinked. Talk her out of what? The test, she said, sighing. That dumb plan with the scarf and the let's fake a breakup to see if he still cares nonsense. I told her, if you need to pretend to lose him to find out if he loves you, you're already halfway to losing him for real. She didn't listen. She never does, I muttered. Melissa gave me a sad smile. She does now. Trust me. I didn't ask what that meant. I didn't want to know. A few weeks later I got a letter. A real one. Envelope. Stamp. My name written in her handwriting. I didn't open it right away. Just let it sit on the counter like a decision I wasn't ready to make. When I finally tore it open, I didn't find the story I expected. There was no fiery confession. No soapbox apology. Just a 2-page letter, handwritten, with shaky words and ink smudges in the margins. She wrote about how the test wasn't really about me. It was about her. About how she'd been feeling invisible. About how her friends told her to shake things up. About how she never meant for it to go that far. She wrote that when I didn't react, when I didn't fall apart or scream or cry. It scared her more than if I had. Because it meant I wasn't confused. I was certain. You didn't fail the test, she wrote. I did. I folded the letter. Placed it in the drawer next to a utility bill and a dried-out pen. Not out of sentiment. Just because it didn't fix anything, didn't change anything. But it was the first thing she'd said in weeks that felt honest. Sometimes I walk past the neighborhood we used to live in. I'll see the coffee shop where she used to meet friends. The bookstore with the crooked sign. The bench by the park where we had that first serious conversation about what we wanted from life. I don't avoid those places. They don't hurt anymore. They're just landmarks now. Markers of a life I lived. A story that had a beginning, middle, and end. She dared me to prove I cared. I proved something else instead. That I knew my worth. That I wouldn't stay where I was only tolerated. That silence isn't weakness. Sometimes it's power. And the funny part? They all thought I'd come crawling back. But they never expected me to disappear for good. Emily messaged again. This time she wanted justice. We submitted everything, emails, call logs, travel receipts, to HR. Within days, Haley and Miles were both fired. No warning. No goodbye party. Just gone. I didn't gloat. I didn't reach out. I changed my number, locked the past behind me. One coworker said she came by the office once, stood near my old parking spot. But I wasn't there anymore. That chapter was closed. A month later, she smiled at her sister's birthday like nothing happened. But in her purse was a letter. 7 words, handwritten by me. Don't look for me. I'm already gone. She sent messages, letters. I never read them. I was already gone. Walking in the park with a book in hand, breathing air that wasn't shared with lies. In that silence, there was no heartbreak, no drama, just peace. And peace finally was enough.